Hey guys, it's Philipp Druzhinin, and I welcome you to my channel. Thanks a lot for following, and today we're gonna have a nice video.
Hello, friends, and thanks for watching this special edition of the Baked and Awake podcast. I'm reading some notes here from my introduction for a special guest that I'm pleased to have on the show with me today, a gentleman who's an experienced and well-respected investigator into the history of the lost civilization. Some call it a lost empire, that of Grand Tartaria. Listeners of this show have heard Philipp's name before more than once, as I've mentioned him as a major source of information and indeed convincing evidence in some of my earliest episodes about the mystery of mud flood events of the late 18th and early 19th centuries and the Grand Tartaria mystery of history. We've been talking about this subject for the better part of a year now on Baked and Awake, and Philip has been talking about Grand Tartaria for several years longer than that. He's been on YouTube since 2011. His main channel has over 19,000 subscribers and is growing every day. Philip's catalog of videos is very prolific. He has over 400 uploads and nearly 2 million views. I don't know if you even knew you had 2 million views yet, Philip, but you're right about there. Can't overstate how informative and insightful Philip's channel is, and we'll of course include a link to your show, your channel, in the show notes today. I recommend everybody who's listening to this find Philip's channel and spend some time there, drop a subscription, and I guarantee you'll learn a lot about this topic. Thank you for joining me today, Philip. I know it's pretty late where you are. You're about 11 hours ahead of me there, and you're in the Moscow time zone. Do you live in Moscow, Russia proper?
Yeah, I'm in Moscow, Russia, and you are where?
Seattle, Washington.
So it's just almost 12 hours difference, I'd say.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a late night for me if I was talking to somebody at this time of night. So thank you for staying up a little bit for us.
Yeah. What is the main topic today? I think you wanted to ask me some questions about Tartarian mud flood.
For sure. Mostly want to have some fun introducing you to my audience, right? And let them get to know you because, as I indicated by my introduction, I think a lot of us consider you a leader in the topic, and in particular amongst the YouTube creators out there who are making content on this subject. I feel like you've really been at it for a while. I always enjoyed your no-nonsense approach to the topic. And as I say, you've been at it longer than most folks that I'm aware of. My first question for you is actually, is this something, Philip, that you've known about since you were a kid? Is this something that is a little bit more common knowledge than we might expect? You know, I'm a newer person to the mud flood mystery. I've only really known about it for a little over a year or so now. But this is history that's hundreds of years old.
Yeah, the problem is that I was working as the head of, first I was just the operative worker, agent, whatever you call it, officer. Then I was the head of crimes, economic crimes department. We were investigating corruption. And my office was, and the walk from my office to the headquarters was near this museum that was first excavated and gave all this mud flood sensation. When the excavation was proceeded, we saw the underground windows that were bricked up, and sometimes even glass was in it. So that was amazing, and I was walking right by this museum each and every day. So that was common to me, and also all this information about the underground tunnels that was available at that moment. And we really knew that a bunch of tunnels in the city and a bunch of all these undergrounds and all these special services that use it right now. And my friends had some type of sub-basement shop with the rifles and guns, ammo shop. And we thought it was sub-basement because, at that moment nobody was talking about that was like it's a buried first floor or something. It's like sub-basement floor or something. But it's like very tall ceiling, height like about maybe 4 meters tall. So it's like very high ceiling for basement. and of course it had more underground, and they were trying to enlarge the rented you know square the of the shop,
Sure.
because they were paying money, and they said like, can we dig deeper and clear the basement underneath, because it has like more uh, you know space there. And they said like, okay, do it. And so they dug, and they found out the bricked tunnel there. Not only basement, just a huge brick tunnel that's heading straight to the ex Starfort that was before there. And I didn't know about the Starfort at that time. I knew that it was some type of fortress, but right now I know it was a Starfort. So uh, so that was the time that we actually saw the tunnels where you can, like two horsemen can bypass each other and don't even touch it. So it's like pretty
Wow.
big one for just saying it's like non-technological. It's, of course, it's technological, and it was not like a sewers, but it was like maybe like a little subway or something, like
Engineered tunnel of
yeah,
some
yeah,
kind.
yeah. Maybe even like pneumatic tunnel. I don't know, because at that time I didn't know the information about the pneumatic transportation that was before. So who knows? Maybe that was the pneumatic tunnel. So, but anyways, as long as they excavated the basement and showed everybody, look, we found something. Like everybody was, oh, and somebody called the museum, and museum was like about like quarter mile from that place. And people from museum came, like some historians or whatever you call them, the regional people that know history about the region, and like bookworms, I would say, and
Local
like
scholar. Sure. Sure.
yeah, scholars, and they're like, oh shit, well, you found the tunnel of the Tsar's Empire tunnel that was used by the Kolchak that was escaping from this house, because that house was the Kolchak. Kolchak, he was a general of who was fighting Bolsheviks, and he even proclaimed Omsk, my hometown, the capital of Russia, when this fight was going on, and bunch of Western countries backed him up, like USA, Britain, Japan, and somebody else. So, and that was a war in 1918. So I'd say I didn't buy that time that was Kolchak tunnel, but it was like pretty much good enough to explain that we found. But right now I know it's
Sure.
not Kolchak.
They had something to tell you, but
Yeah. But
well,
one thing
something
that
in
was
your head.
missing here in this chain of information is that exactly when everybody went home, this truck with the concrete came there, and when everybody was home, in around like 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., they came and they poured all this concrete into this hole that they excavated. And the museum people were there
Wow.
also, and they say like some FBI people, Russian FBI people were there. So I mean, so they totally knew the information that those tunnels were used by those special forces of to maybe have a secret transportation, like a traffic jam or something is in the city. You want to achieve the point really fast, and you use those tunnels, of course, because there's no traffic jams there. You like totally free, and you don't have to go to helicopters or anything, like and it's
Mm-hmm.
totally secret and nobody knows, because it's undercover transport. And you like you can appear in some house or some building at the other end of the city, right?
Visible street.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what we're talking about. So, and that's the level of information that was before. Right now, I have more information about that place, and I know that the whole city is with these tunnels and stuff like this, and more of that all those tunnels continue way through whole Siberia and way to the East Asia, and even to Japan.
Right. I
So,
think a lot remains to be learned about these tunnel systems that we're finding out seem to be under all these major cities. And I'm sure you're indicating something that I've heard a few other places before. We think they go further than
yeah,
maybe we've told,
and
don't
I
we?
think it's not like for transporting big amounts of people or maybe like just small group of people can be put in some object like some pneumatic bullet type of train that is going inside, and you like blow the pressure and it's pressing it. Right now we don't have anything left because maybe the rust or maybe like some parts are missing, and maybe they like totally dissolved in the water or moisture. But what you can see is just perfect brick masonry and all these tunnels of all brick made. And I didn't see any reinforcement like you see in the metro stations, all these reinforcements that they do. I didn't see any reinforcement.
It was intact. It didn't
Yeah,
need all.
yeah. It was all this form is reinforcement. The shape is reinforcement.
I want to make sure we keep the detail level a little bit light for our listeners today, Philip, partially because I want to encourage them strongly to make their way to your channel and look
So
at the.
only exclusive information for you.
There we go. There we go. You've got dozens of hours of
Yeah.
really informative content on the ins and outs of the nature of the structures, the history of the sites that are in your local area, and I want to make sure people do get to get the big picture today with us a little bit, so that they can get back to your channel and really dig in. If we can, I want to ask you sort of my next question here. Mud flood and Grand Tartaria, speaking of your local area, these mysteries, at least on the internet, the way we first encountered them, the way most of us first encountered them, appears to have really deep roots in Russian history and culture. Most mud flood researchers will either lightly or heavily refer to the works of Anatoly Fomenko in particular, and his new chronology books. I know that it's something that you're not ignorant of at all. Can I ask you, to the best, you don't have to get too technical here, or agree with or refute everything about Fomenko and his new chronology, but on his own website, he summarizes on the front page that using Fomenko is a noted Russian, if I'm not mistaken, mathematician and statistician who wrote the books, The New Chronology. And he states that they applied his background in mathematics, his background in statistics, compared it against the official history, compared it against, first-hand original documents of history. And based on their analysis, it was proved in their terms that the Scaligerian chronology, and therefore the Scaligerian history of antiquity and the Middle Ages, is totally wrong. Moreover, it appears that our history right up to the end of the 16th century was consciously falsified, and at the epoch of the 17th and 18th centuries, that work was done. Therefore, we're living in a world today that is a world with that intentionally altered history. Fomenko, of course, was referring to Joseph Justus Scaliger, the French academic who wrote the famous history book, Historia Theologica. Horis Temporum is the name of is the book from Scaliger. But so that, of course, shapes much of official history today, is the Scaligerian narrative from his book. Do we think Fomenko was really onto something and got the big parts of his theory correct?
Yeah, I got a little deeper when I tried to realize where the leak came from. I found out that Fomenko was in the group of Soviet, when you have a group of different scientists, like historians, maybe geographers, I don't know, biologists, chemicals, I don't know, space scientists, and mathematicians. And he was in that group, and a bunch of different scientists were performing one project, and it was called the discrediting the Western history. Okay, because there was a backup plan for the Soviet propaganda machine. They wanted to make like at certain point make this stab in the back for the Western history line, because it's totally made up, and they knew it. and that information was totally proven during these investigations of that were made in Nazi Germany and in the Soviet Union during and before the World War II, because a bunch of special forces were and agents were in each and every country trying to find all this ancestor knowledge, and they were trying to refresh all this information of the history. So the Soviets knew the Western history was totally falsified, and that's why that project was made up and was funded by Soviets. But at a certain point, Soviet Union was destroyed by this Cold War situation. Like,
Sure.
I'd say it was planned, and everybody knew they were going to do it. So they just stopped the financing of this project. And at that time, probably Fomenko and Nosovsky really were just, making money on their one work. They were working for Moscow State University at the Faculty of the Mathematics. So it's not a big money, okay? It's not a very big money for Moscow.
Sure.
And so what I found out that they needed some project to make some more business, because everybody else was doing it in 90s. It was like a break of this communist system, and everybody started to make money. So those two professors were really smart, and I think we need to write a book about what we did in the Soviet time and what we found out when we calculated all this. What they did, actually, they made a program that was calculating all this information and finding this certain patterns in the history that they presented in some of their works. Like they see the different ones, different names, but the same situation, like
Sure.
with the period of 200 years, like with the difference.
Sure, we have doublings and triplings
Yeah,
of
yeah,
some
yeah, 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 yeah. So that
in the history, right?
yeah,
Kind of stuff.
that that was the idea of that group. So that group was working for this, and they pulled the blanket on themselves and trying to make the money on this information, because it was a hard time for Russia. It was like I'd say it's like Great Depression or something time period for USA, like similar type, where everybody just needs to make some money. And so they did it, and they made a large campaign of this public relations to present it. But they don't talk about mud flood. They don't talk about falsification of Napoleon Wars. All this stuff is like more clear to me, because it's not that far away, because what they are trying to present us was happening like way before the 16th 17th century, and that's where they stop. As what I know. Maybe right now they wrote more books, but at the period I was reading them, they stopped at a certain period, like late medievals, and
There we go.
that's why I don't really buy their comments to what they found, because I don't see the correlation with what I found, and that's where our roads separate.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I agree with the idea of the group that Western history paradigm is falsified, but more of that I don't research, because it was before the 19th century, before the 18th century. So, and I don't really buy, because I know everything was re-edited in 19th century. That's why they also
Vision done.
yeah, they also read the same edited sources like everybody else. So that's the mistake, okay? But I know why they do it, because if they totally blow up this information about 19th century, 18th century, I'd say they be like
Start people too close to them in history, people who found and in control even in the time when they were doing their work.
Yeah, that's why they stay way back before that, because at that certain point they don't have this,
That's what they can talk about.
pain in a bottle for the mainstream. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a question I knew you were uniquely qualified to answer for me,
Yeah,
Philip.
I promised people to make a single video about it, but I still don't have enough time to do it. Maybe after this video I'll edit.
That's one I watched, Philip. That's one I would love to watch. I would love to see you spend time.
I'll edit this chat also to this video, so we can have like a prequel of your question, and then I'll just go to the information itself. Okay.
love it. That would be wonderful. So that leads me to another question, and this is like, I think maybe a personal thing that's different for everybody. But what to you, Philip, is the most interesting aspect of the mud flood, Grand Tartaria mysteries? Like, what keeps you motivated to continue digging into this subject? Where do you think your research is taking you with this?
Yeah, I think the next step that we're gonna be talking about is the Empire of Ross. Actually, the only one,
Your new
actual,
shirt.
yeah, actual empire that was before, and all the rest of the empires are just fake empires. Those empires are just little parts of this huge empire. So, and that's where the we're gonna be touching the parasites more. We're gonna be researching who they are, what they do, what are they like, technology of what they, how they operate of this world. So this is what I'm probably heading to.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. I just saw your merch, Empire of Roast, and I was thinking about, oh,
Uh,
this is
yeah,
kind of a term I haven't.
people ask me
What?
to where I can buy a shirt. I made a
Yeah,
shirt for them, and nobody
yeah.
ever bought one single shirt.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I was thinking about getting one. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
I'll
might get
maybe I'll
myself.
be,
I
there
have
we
a
go.
US mail address, so I can get myself. It's
Nice,
only
right? Teespring there. There we go. Good stuff. Well, it's a good looking shirt, so I'll try to be one of your first customers on
okay.
that.
Thanks.
That's really cool. So I'm excited to learn a lot more about the Empire of Rose. I
Yeah.
really am. And
Do you have your own merch with the bacon wig?
a little bit. What do I use? T Public.
Uh,
Simple
you
kind of.
send me the link. I also want to buy a couple of different shirts with the logos of different channels, because sometimes I talk with Richard Lopez. I want to present
Sure.
his logo, and so it would be like
Uh,
very nice to.
hey, you'd make my day, Philip.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Send me a link.
that I will. I'll be happy to. That actually leads me to my very last question that I have for you for our chat today. I again have super appreciated this talk. Like, we covered a lot of interesting ground in a short amount of time. I hold you in high regard with your research in mud flood. I know you've established relationships with Richard, with my friend Andreas Exertus from his own Tartarizertis efforts and channel. Can you tell us, me and the audience, anybody else? I know we both like our friend Global Vision. Who is he? Another Russian gentleman?
Yeah.
Who else should people be listening to or looking into who we might not have mentioned just yet? Who can help them learn more the good stuff about mud flood and Grand Tartaria?
Well, I'd say at certain point I stopped watching this topic. It was like because the summer was very, fulfilled with information and activities of my own. So, I mean, I stopped monitoring internet at
Right,
summer. So,
right.
and right now I don't even know who is new one. But the people I really, how do you say? Um, Referred to as, possible to watch or might watch or must watch, must have, whatever. I just, I put them on my community.
There we
uh,
go.
yeah,
You have some
and
good
sometimes
channels.
I do a chat with the person, and so the people know who it is. Like, I do a chat with you, so I'll upload this chat to my channel and show people your link. So this is how I, you know pull the people to the channel of the person. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. In case of like Stellium 7, like a huge amount of people came to his channel first, but then nobody comes. I don't know what's happening. So
Hmm,
it's like, I don't know the algorithm, if it's the algorithm, I don't know.
sure,
But right
sure.
now, we see the decrease of views, we see the decrease of recommendation, we see the decrease of non-subscribed viewers on all the channels that I
Yeah.
manage. I have a bunch of channels, so it's like,
This is YouTube level. We know it is. It's wild.
yeah. So the monetization is the key thing. So if you want your channel to grow, you have to be a partner. You have to be monetized. If you don't monetize, sooner or later you're gonna be banned or blocked by YouTube. So
yeah, and that is a scary thing to think about for all of us as we work so hard at our channels and see so little, you know, in terms of direct return anyway.
so
But
if you watch
sure,
somebody who is non-monetized, tell him to be monetized as soon as possible, because as long as he monetized, he has some security protection from this total block by YouTube.
there we
Uh,
go. Well, help your channels get to monetizable status by not just watching but subscribing and sticking around and
yeah,
supporting those channels.
this is not a huge amount of money, but it keeps YouTube thinking that you are a decent channel, and it doesn't, you know, perform all these harsh actions. Okay.
There. Well, Philip, I want to thank you. I think we have just a couple minutes left before the conference is going to end here. Did you have any announcements, or would you like to remind folks the names of both of your channels so that they can be sure to get to you directly? Of course, I'm going to be writing them as clickable links in my show description, but you have a second channel besides just Philipp Druzhinin on YouTube, don't you?
Yes, I tried to make a backup channel and I called it Mudflood Research Advanced Research, right?
There
So
we go.
as what I have the Facebook group. So if you
Great.
wanna,
And we still recommend people go ahead and sub to Mudflood Research Advanced as
yeah,
a back to Philipp Druzhinin should anything happen to that main channel.
yeah, they're gonna be both okay, I hope, because you know, I'm a professional in YouTube, so it would be a serious
You should.
fuck up to to get a channel blocked. So I probably won't do it. Okay.
Good. Well, and so as Philip indicated, a lot of the creators who are doing great research in the area, Philip sat down with most of them by now, and there are visits with several different people on Philip's channel. Find him on YouTube at Philipp Druzhinin and at Mudflood Research Advanced. Philip, I hope this is the first of many calls we get to have together
Yeah,
over the
if you have
year.
time, we can do another 30 minutes, so I'm okay with that.
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. You'll see this all soon. Thanks, Philip.